Okay, so with the Starfield announcement event coming soon, eventually, I want to jump in and talk about some of the things we can expect to see and a few things I hope they focus on in the event. The most important thing we're going to hear in the event is, of course, the release date or the release window. If they're still trying to get the game out as soon as possible, and if the game is playable all the way through right now, we'll probably be playing Starfield within the next 4 months before the end of June. I really don't think it'll be later than that. But many players have had experiences with games that showed off their goods and then let the hype die down before finally releasing the game. I doubt Bethesda would make a similar mistake. During the event, we'll most likely not hear much about the story and plot, of course, because they're not going to want to spoil anything. But whatever gameplay they do reveal is certain to show bits and pieces of lore that we didn't know before, so in addition to what they choose to show us, content creators are going to go over the gameplay with a fine-tooth comb, making 15-minute long videos about 5-second clips. I might be one of them, so sub to the channel and hit the bell if you don't want to miss that super exciting content. The most anticipated system in Starfield is the same system they might spend the most time talking about: creating and customizing your own starship. That system has several unknown tidbits that we're all dying to know. We'll learn how many ships we can have, how they'll be stored, how many parts might be available, and how different parts can affect the performance of your ship for different tasks. I really think this will feel like power armor in Fallout 4. There might be a frame that needs to be acquired through different means, and then those frames will be for different types of ships. Heavy frames for like transport or storage ships, and lighter frames for things like fighters. If the shipbuilding system has enough depth, customizing your ship is going to be a highly satisfying endeavor. And of course, if the system has enough depth, we're going to get some crazy ships and parts from the modding community. In this same vein, the event runners will move into base building and the NPCs that can work in those bases. We'll probably learn how settling works and how multiple bases will interact with each other. Maybe we'll be able to set up shipping lanes to get materials from one base to another in order to effectively combine materials for crafting, sort of like the settlement system in Fallout 4. I don't think there will be too much to talk about in regards to bases, since this isn't a new thing to gaming. Since it's been mentioned that bases are meant to farm resources from the different planets, after they touch on base building, they'll probably start talking about the crafting system. Crafting is one of my favorite things to do in a game. To combine things in unexpected ways to build a character that does exactly what you envisioned it would do. Once again, since crafting systems are prevalent in gaming, there isn't going to be much new stuff here, so they might simply talk about what items can be crafted and compare their power to whatever unique items might be found in the world, along with hopefully a showcase of weapons and armor that we might have access to in the game. After talking about weapons and gear, it makes sense to finally talk about the skill tree. They'll finally go into detail about what skills and traits will be available in the game, along with finalizing how they'll interact with the player and their gear. The most time about this section, though, will most likely go into the traits that players will apply to their characters, and how they can go about changing those traits in the middle of a playthrough if they find out it conflicts with how they want to play their character. That consideration about how a player wants to play the game will lead directly into the factions in Starfield. During this section, we might get a number of all of the factions available, along with some of the smaller ones. How the world interacts with the player and the factions they choose to work with is really interesting to me. So I do hope that they spend a lot of time talking about the factions and how the game will be played once the player finishes the main story. Will the game world change, leading to an unplayable game similar to how Elden Ring ends once you burn the tree, forcing you to start over? Or will the world continue to live on with the changes you created during your playthrough, letting you explore and create in the new world? Considering the nature of traits at character creation, it makes sense that players will play through the game multiple times to get through many of the different situations and options that Bethesda has created. I personally hope that the world remains mostly unchanged at the end of the main story, letting the character that you created up until that point available to explore and build. A new game plus would be great, but I don't think that's something that we'll have access to because of the trait system. But we'll see. The most important gameplay system that they'll probably talk about is their procedural quest system that they'll use to fill the 1,000 planets we'll have access to. They can't afford to let it turn out the same way that No Man's Sky was when it was first released, and easing the minds of players that the planets aren't going to be empty, boring landscapes with no exciting secrets to discover will be very important, and they'll probably spend a lot of time talking about it. Aside from predictions for what will be in the Starfield event, there are a lot of things that I'm hoping they'll talk about. The biggest is the mod support that was mentioned super early in the media cycle. I hope that they talk about the system that they'll make available for modders and how robust that system will be to make mods for Starfield. Modders are what will make the game have the same staying power that the Fallout and Skyrim games have had. And giving them access to tools to make outstanding mods is only a win. The biggest problem, however, is that Bethesda is a company first. The game needs to be profitable, and how Bethesda chooses to monetize the game after we buy it is going to be a very important question that's answered eventually. We might see DLCs, of course, but my fear is that the same modding tools that they give the community to create content will be the same place they try to get more of our money. Only time will tell, of course, but I think it's safe to say that the initial purchase price and future DLCs won't be the only places we see our wallets being hunted by Bethesda. And we might get a hint about their plans for monetization during the event. And that's about it. I don't know how long the event will be, but I hope it's like 45 minutes to an hour of just pure info dump. After the event and the release date window is announced, we'll start to see more and more information come out about the game in more focused snippets, and I'm looking forward to all of it. As that information comes out, I'll be covering it right away, so if you're interested in Starfield information, make sure you sub to the channel and like the video. I'm making a hard shift into a new game, and the YouTube algorithm makes that kind of shift very hard on a channel, as you can probably tell. Anyway, let me know what you think we'll see in the Starfield event coming up in the comments below, and until next time, I'm Space Coconut, and you're welcome.